Hey, I'm John Grant, and welcome back to the Johnny Grant Show. The UFC lightweight division is undoubtedly the most talented weight class in the UFC, but it is in a very confusing spot with featherweight champion Ilia Topuria vacating his 145 belt and moving up into the division. Both Poirier and Gaethje likely need retirement fights, and Arman Tsarukyan is also in a weird spot after pulling out of his title fight of UFC 311 on 24 hours' notice. So here's how I would match up all these lightweight fighters if I was Hunter Campbell. So first up, for the lightweight championship, it has to be Islam Makhachev versus Ilia Topuria. Excluding Jones versus Aspinall, this is the biggest fight the UFC can make right now. No doubt this would smash every pay-per-view record. Two of the biggest stars in the sport fighting each other in their prime. Yes, Arman might be more of a number one contender right now, but he had his chance and he pulled out. So you already know he's not getting the shot. Islam versus Ilia is fireworks. It's a fight that brings so many new fans to the UFC. Both guys at the top of their game. Islam's the pound-for-pound number one fighter versus Ilia Topuria, coming off two huge knockout wins over Alexander Volkanovski and Max Holloway. This fight is a must-happen. Now, next up, for the number one contender fight, it has to be Arman Tsarukyan versus Charles Oliveira rematch, and it has to be 5 rounds. This is where it gets more confusing. If you were to ask me 4 weeks ago, what is the most exciting fight the UFC lightweight division could make, I would 100% say Islam Makhachev versus Arman Tsarukyan 2. But Arman pulled out of UFC 311 on 24 hours' notice and pissed off Dana White. So now he needs to fight another contender in order to get back to the next in line spot. So now I think the perfect fight to make is Arman Tsarukyan versus Charles Oliveira rematch for 5 rounds. Oliveira is coming off a win versus Michael Chandler at 309 and is still very well a top contender in this division. And the winner of this should get the next title shot after Islam versus Ilia. Their first fight was awesome, but it was only for 3 rounds, and 5 rounds would just be even more awesome. Next up, we got Dustin Poirier versus Max Holloway 2 for the BMF belt and also Poirier's retirement. Dustin Poirier has made it very clear that he wants one more fight, and that to be the retirement fight. At first, I thought it was a no-brainer. They should make a Poirier-Gaethje trilogy and call it a day. But both guys have said they don't want that, and they're fine with their series being tied 1-1. And honestly, so am I. 2 legends of the sport. Keep it at that. Keep them 1-1. So I think a great fight to make now for Poirier's retirement is to run it back with Max Holloway. Their first fight was awesome in 2019. 2 legends of the sport. Poirier said he only wants a legend for his retirement, and a Holloway rematch just makes way too much sense for both of them. It's a guaranteed war. It could be a great send-off for Poirier, and it could be a great jump in the rankings for Max Holloway. Poirier versus Holloway 2, book it, Dana. And last up, I think this one is a no-brainer. They just have to rebook Justin Gaethje versus Dan Hooker for 5 rounds. Justin Gaethje was scheduled to fight Dan Hooker on last week's UFC 313. Hooker pulled out, and Rafael Fiziev stepped in to replace him. Gaethje beat him by unanimous decision in a great fight. I've seen people say to make Islam versus Gaethje now, and I don't know what on earth they're talking about or thinking. The right thing to do is just to rebook the fight. Give us Justin Gaethje versus Dan Hooker for 5 rounds on literally any card. It doesn't matter. This fight is a guaranteed war. There's no way around it. We cannot get robbed of this matchup. It has to happen. If Gaethje wins that fight, maybe we can start talking about him going up and trying to fight for the belt again. And that's all for today's video. Thank you for watching the Johnny Grant Show, and I will see you next time.